And my 5.0, rag top down, hair can blow. I'm going to talk to you guys about how to be a better writer. And I want to start off with this quote: writing is easy. It's really easy. All you do is sit staring at a blank sheet of paper until the drops of blood form on your forehead. Basically saying that writing is not that easy, especially writing well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a few pointers on how to have more interesting writing, more compelling writing, more captivating writing, and most importantly, not to have boring writing. Because you see, I taught school for 8 years, and I taught art, and I also taught creative writing in English, and a little bit of photography too, and we would never talk in the bounds of good art versus bad art or good writing versus bad writing. It was always good art and boring art, or good writing and boring writing. Nothing compelling. There's nothing that connects the reader or connects the viewer. It's not compelling, it's not captivating, there's nothing there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a damn better job of connecting to our reader. And here's a few ways that we're going to do this. Be quality, be genuine, and be disciplined. So first off, see, I press it a little bit and it doesn't do anything. Then I press it hard.
You gotta look it right at it. You gotta look it right at it.
You gotta put your mouth just right.
There it is.
Yes.
First thing we're going to do is avoid broad descriptives. A better way to put this is avoid vague descriptives. What do I mean by that? It was cold outside. I was tired. She was there on the 4th of July. The crowd was crazy. The music was so loud. That baby's really hungry. See, the problem with all of those is they don't tell us anything. They tell us it was cold, but they don't tell us anything about the cold. They don't tell us how the cold affected you or affected those around you. It doesn't tell us anything. It's a vague descriptive. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take "it's cold outside." So how can we connect the reader to the cold that it is? Because as you all know, being from all kinds of different areas of the country or beyond, that there's different types of cold, isn't there? It's chilly, put on your jacket, it's a little chilly outside, to that type of cold that rips through your soul, right? So there's different colds, and it's not fair to your reader just say it was cold out. It doesn't do anything for them. So here's a few ways that we could help our reader. I could see my breath. The grass crunched under my feet. Everyone's wobbling around in large coats. See, those are better ways, more creative ways, more picturesque ways of describing the cold. So what we're looking for ultimately, is to show and not to tell. To tell is to say it's cold outside. But instead, let's show them that it's cold outside. It is one of the quickest and easiest ways to captivate your reader. And the moment I tell you this, when you read anything from journalism to really well done blog posts to actually prose and poetry, you'll see that writers all across the board do this. They use descriptives. They show. They don't tell. Connect to your reader. So here's another way of connecting with your reader. Metaphor. It's a more creative way to describe what's going on. Let's start off with the traffic was loud. All right, so the traffic was loud. You have now told your reader a valuable, and we're going to consider this at this point, a valuable piece of information that pushes your story forward. So the traffic was loud, dull. But since we're talking about metaphor, and I actually use this exercise with all of my creative writing kids all the time. It's a really good way to write metaphors or to discover the idea of metaphor. So the traffic was loud. And then I would ask the kids, and I would ask you guys, what are ways that it could be loud? What are the noises that it's making? So we have it buzzed, it clanged, it roared, it churned. Those are different descriptives of the traffic. Now, we could stop there. I think it's a lot cooler to say the traffic buzzed than it is that it was loud, or it clanged, or it roared, but let's keep going. Let's squeeze the juice out of this lemon. So what other things, if we're going to highlight the idea of roaring, what other things roar? So now we go from, and you can do this with buzzing or clanging or churning or whatever you have. So what other things do this? So when we're talking about roaring, lions, oceans, bears, airplanes. So now you see how you could go from the traffic just being loud to the traffic roared like a hungry lion. That's a lot more interesting, right? I would probably even kill the like, and I would say the traffic was a hungry lion. That for me is even more poetic. But again, we're not necessarily writing poetry, and we want to get to the point. And you don't have to do this with all of your words, but you need to connect with your reader. If what you're describing has value in the story, then take your time. Show us. So if this cold has a lot to do with the story, if, let's say, this is an experience you had and you learned something through that cold. You went back home and you weren't well prepared for the cold, and somebody provided you a jacket and that affected you, then yeah, the cold is a main character in your story. Then take your time to show us that. That cold was a big deal. So just don't say it's cold outside. The same with the traffic, and so on and so on. And the reason why I also say that is you don't want metaphors and similes for every stinking thing in your story, because then you're just turning this into a Herman Melville novel and it's going to be really long and ridiculous. But if it's your antagonist, if it's your protagonist, whatever that is, then yeah, definitely give it some time and show your reader. But here I have a few words that also don't help out the reader at all. So, it was so loud. Please, don't do that. Don't ever do that. It was so loud. It doesn't help anything. It's not an amplifier. It's lazy. It's lazy writing. And that's what these are. Nice. The weather was nice. Really? How about the weather was relieving? You know? Or it was a breath of fresh air. I mean, you could even use an idiom if you wanted in there. Very. And I understand that all of these, there are times and places for all of these things, but when you're writing, always take pause in your sentence and go, could I find a better word for how I'm communicating? Could I be connecting my reader in a better way? Really, a bunch, a whole lot, all of those types of words, they don't do much for the reader. They're good for Facebook, but they're not good for writing. I got, I had, I went, I walked, all of those words, not extremely helpful. You can set a greater mood, you can establish a better tone by using, for example, instead of I got, I was handed. I acquired, I achieved, I was rewarded. For went, I escaped, traveled, changed course, whatever went you're going, because went, again, just like it was cold, it's broad and vague. Let's specify and connect to your reader. Put your reader in a place and time. Walked, stumbled, I pranced, I stomped, I plodded. We could sit here, and it's always a fun game to find out how many words we have for the word drunk. You ever thought about that? Tipsy. 6 sheets to the wind. What else? Inebriated. What else? Hammered. Pissed, sloshed, wasted. What? Zonked. In trouble. In need of bail money. Yes. So you know there's a lot more creative ways to describe things than just I walked. So on that note, let's try to avoid tired idioms. And Brandon, what is an idiom? Well, here's a short list, and I'm sure that you can't read any of those, but I'll read a few, like a hot potato, a penny for your thoughts, burning the midnight oil, can't judge a book by its cover, don't give up your day job, crying over spilled milk, at an arm's length, caught between two stools. I've never heard that one. That may be English. Rock in a hard place, behind the eight ball, all of those. They're tired and they're old. Come up with your own. That's what you do as your writer, and that's what's going to give you your voice that's going to be different than anybody else's, because at one point, all of these were new. And it was a writer that came up with this killer metaphor, this killer idiom, this killer idea, and they put it in their poetry or their writing or their journalism, and they were known by that. And then they're copied and copied and copied and rehashed and redone and redone until they've lost their intensity. The marrow has been sucked out. So find your own. If you need to say a rock in a hard place, fine. Put that in there. Write that in there. But underline it as you go. Come back to it later. Put something else in there. All right? When you're writing, you don't want to sacrifice flow for articulation. You want to get the idea out there. You want to get the steps and the process out there of how the story went down. Underline things you're not satisfied with. Come back to them later. All right? I do that. I miss the forest from the trees all the time in my own writing. So I just used an idiom too, didn't I? There you go. So stuff like this, we can do better. And I want to challenge you to do that. I'm not saying that I'm going to be sending blog posts back because you said something like this. I'm not at the end of the day or whatever. I'm not doing that, but I'm just, these are challenges. These are ways that we can better connect to our reader. And idioms like that are just lazy writing, and I apologize, but that's just real talk. It says that right there, but this thing doesn't like me. Okay, I'm going to read this out loud because you probably can't see it. Find a subject. This is Kurt Vonnegut. Find a subject that you care about, in which you, in your heart, feel others should care about. It is the genuine caring and not your games with language which will be the most compelling and seductive element in your style. I'm not urging you to write a novel, by the way, although I would not be sorry if you wrote one, provided you genuinely cared about something. But a petition to the mayor about a pothole in front of your house or a love letter to the girl next door will do. So I'm kind of, in a small, fun way, and that would definitely be the writer in me, to contradict myself. Because as awesome and poetic as all these words are, they mean nothing if you're not genuine. And that is my last thing, Bob, whatever you want to call it. Last point is to be genuine, to be yourself, to be authentic. This genuine caring and not games with language will be the most compelling and seductive element in your style. And I've read some pretty crazy, funny, captivating things, and they've been about the most insignificant stuff ever. One of the most popular television shows of all times is also called The Show About Nothing, and that's Seinfeld. And it really was. There were episodes about eating your candy bar with a fork, and Junior Mints, and soup, and chest of drawers, and all these absolutely insignificant things. But it was the people behind it that we connected with. And you see, that's what needs to be in our writing. What's alive for you? And I know that's something that our bloggers, they ask me a bit, like I need, being on track and staying on track and all that. First off, what are you connecting with? Why are you here? Why are you signed up? And what's alive for you? Those are the three things that you need to be asking yourself when you're deciding what you need to be writing about. It's got to be alive for you. And as a matter of fact, there's definitely some stuff for me that's alive, and I'm actually going to be posting a few things in the next month or so. But yeah, I got to write about a few, yeah. So you need to connect with your reader. Again, I can't say it enough. Because ultimately your reader wants to connect. Selwa just finished talking to us about all the times that people were on the site and how many minutes they stayed on the site. They were on because they wanted to read it. A lot of times they're our friends. They're friends of friends. They're colleagues. And you saw where they were coming from. They were coming from LinkedIn and they're coming from Facebook. They're connected to us in some way, shape, or form, either vaguely or directly. They want to connect with you. So just understand that. Most of these readers, at least at this point in the age of what we're doing, they're for you. They're already for you. Go for it. But be genuine for God's sake. So before actually I go past that, we've done, and Sel talked about lists and different things that have really been working. And I'll tell you what will definitely work is if you've experienced those things, don't put down a list of things that you found that you like from a website or different things if you haven't been through it. Don't talk about aspects of success that you have not championed yourself. Now, if they inspire you, write about them, but make sure your reader knows that. Man, these things have been jazzing me, and I've written these on my wall, and I wake up and I look at it every morning. Great, be at that point and be real with your reader. But don't be like, this is what's worked for me, guys. Do it for you, and you can be where I am today. If that's not how you got there, then don't act like it has. Because it is really easy in this day and age because we have all of these 7 ways of success and being highly influential and all this stuff and all this information coming down on top of our heads on how to be a better fill in the blank. A lot of information. Make sure it's that stuff that you have consumed yourself, that you have digested and you have seen fruit in your life. Definitely write about it, but make sure it's genuine in your own soul. So, the whole idea of writing and moving forward, and trust me, we're almost done. I told you I wasn't going to be very long, all right? I haven't had writer's block. I think it's because my process involves writing very badly. Remember what I said before about writing and actually writing to get the idea out and the process and the steps to your story and then coming back later and dealing with your nuances? That's a good way to look at this. When you're first writing, don't be so critical with yourself. You can do that later. You want to get the story out. You want to get it down because in all honesty, once you get even the basics down, you're going to feel a lot more confident about finishing that and having a complete work. It'll be a lot easier. And so that's what Jennifer Egan's saying, is that I write a lot of bad shit and it's okay. It's really okay that I write a lot of bad stuff because I get better and it changes and I improve. And that's all part of the process. You don't start a Picasso. You eventually get there. I used to tell my students that all the time. They'd pick up a paintbrush and they'd put it down, Miss Will, I can't do this. Like, do you really think that Herbie Hancock could actually play the keys when he first stepped up to it? And then I'd actually have to explain to them who Herbie Hancock is. But after that, it took him decades to get where he was. And it takes us practice too. It takes us practice with anything. Writing is definitely going to be one of those things as well. And as one of my favorite artists, Chuck Close, says, inspiration is for amateurs. Don't wait to be inspired to write or to paint or to anything. We're talking about writing right now, but don't wait for inspiration. Do it. Be disciplined. And on that note, I don't believe in writer's block. If I can't write, I go out and live. Then, if I'm a writer, I'll find something to write. Make it part of your lifeblood. something gets your girdle when you're out, write that down, take a note on it. I'm going to come back to this thing that I've realized really upsets me. Somebody on Facebook put some ignorant quote up or something like that. Then write that down, man. That's something I got to say something about. And then write out your process and then go in deeper. And understand this, you got 1 month to get 2 posts. Doing a post the day before it's due, that's high school. Don't do that. You got 1 month to do 2 posts. Just understand that. So I think that's about it. And get feedback. Yeah, I forgot I had that one too. And don't let the ones who are supposed to be reading it once it's actually live, that shouldn't be the feedback. You need to have somebody in your corner that's not only supportive, but is willing to tell you the hard thing about your writing. All right? So that means most of our mamas don't need, oh baby, that's so good, but you know how that works. So you probably need to find somebody who is willing to critique your stuff, to make sure that it's understandable when it gets out there, so that can actually read it and understand, am I emotionally and mentally digesting this properly? And that's what you definitely need to find in someone other than most people in this room. Now, if it's like Key and Selwa, awesome. But it shouldn't be like Jesse or me. Because we're reading it when it's live, when it's already up there and we're like, oh God, that's live. We don't want to be at that point. So don't be afraid of your writing. Be excited about it because it gets better, because we're captivating this audience, because you have an end game in mind with all this. All right, guys? And if you're wondering, there's a ton of words spell check cannot catch. All right? Understand that. See, they're not misspelled. They're not misspelled, are they? They're not. That's what spell check can't catch, because they're actually real words. You get it? Okay, good. All right. So that's it. Thank you, guys.